My story, like any good story, is about love. Just happens to also be about boners. When I was 23 years old, I moved up to Scottsdale after dropping out of college and selling the house that my parents had got for me when I started college, and I was broke and I had nothing. And I started to get sick. And I don't know if it was a reaction to just how drab and awful Phoenix is, or if there was something seriously wrong with me. So I waited it out for months, and started slowly, my hands would hurt in the morning, and my feet would swell, and I had weird bumps all over my body, and I thought I had bed bugs or cancer. But it got worse. I started to get a pain in my left testicle, and eventually my throat started to swell up so bad every morning I had trouble breathing. And the worst part of all was that I could just no longer get an erection. Now, I don't know if anyone in this room remembers what it's like to be a 23-year-old boy, but when you're a 23-year-old boy and you can't get an erection, it's kind of all you have. You remember, part of me was terrified that I had cancer. Another part of me was more terrified that I would never again have an erection. And I did what every young man does in a medical emergency. I ignored it for as long as possible. I watched Cialis commercials and almost cried. There's a silver fox who's got a yacht, a wife, and bathtubs on a hillside. And he gets to have an erection. Well, I have nothing. Not only did I have nothing, I really thought I was going to die of cancer. So when I woke up one morning and I couldn't breathe through my throat, I decided I have to go to the doctor immediately. But the switch flipped, and I was no longer ashamed, I was just terrified. And so I went to the nearest doctor to me, and I didn't have a car in Scottsdale, so I had to walk there. And as I hustled my way over to my appointment, I realized that the doctor's office that I decided to go to was attached to a 7-Eleven. I'm not making this up. On Scottsdale and 68th, or McDowell and 58th in Scottsdale, there's a 7-Eleven, and behind it there's a doctor's office. And this would have been fine, except no one in this doctor's office was speaking English when I walked in. The only English in this whole place was the comforting sound of the view. Everything was in Arabic. I watched the patient before me check out, and he had a head wound on his head that the doctor had bandaged up, and then they talked about how because they went to the same church, he wouldn't charge him. You know when your body is just telling you that this is not a place that you should be? You know, in your mind, you know it would be much simpler to walk away. That side of me was at war with the side of me that one day wanted to have sexual intercourse again and didn't want to die of cancer. So I went in and saw the doctor, and he was a lovely man, and none of his diplomas were in English. And he was very gentle and very nice to me. The only problem is he didn't completely close the door while I was in the office explaining to him my entire sexual history. And now I'm not really a Don Juan, and I've never been bashful about how many partners I've had until I could make eye contact with the doctor's mother while explaining to him all my partners. So I talked to him for a while, and eventually the idea came up that it's either in your head or it's something very serious. And this exact idea is exactly what the internet told me. So we started all the tests. And I took the tests, And I found out that I went from being allergic to nothing to being absolutely allergic to everything. I had to have a sonogram on my testicle because it hurt. And as I was staring at this woman who usually spends her day showing people their newborn babies, I couldn't work up the apology as she rubbed the gel on my testicle. But so I got the test back, and I found out I was allergic to every plant they tested me for except one. And then I was allergic to soy, corn, and shellfish, which is in everything. So I moved back to Tucson, and I started managing my symptoms. I changed my diet, I went outside less, I bought new sheets, I bought covers for my mattress. I got a prescription to Viagra. I was managing symptoms is all I was doing. But I'll tell you this, after close to a year and a half of not having an erection, it's well worth paying $70 for one. I was broke and it cost $70 each time I had sex with someone. And I was never able to explain to anyone how special that moment was for me. Because that was a large investment. I started carrying around, when I thought I could get lucky, I started carrying around a pack of gum with one thing out and the pill inside. And while drinking, I would continuously be checking to make sure I had not lost my $70 pack of gum. I took a girl home once, and I didn't have any pills, and she just so easily believed me that whiskey dick happened. Now, I was not aware that women just so graciously accepted that they didn't have to have sex with you. When I'd been back for probably 6 months, just managing my symptoms, I started to get better. My hands and feet didn't swell. I changed my diet, it worked. Found out that I had a hydrocele in my testicle, which is like what Lance Armstrong had that made his blow up to the size of a grapefruit. Only mine was fine. It just had a little extra water in it now. Then I met a girl. And this girl was fantastic. She was dark and alluring and hilarious. She was just beautiful, everything a guy would want. And for some reason, she liked me. And as I was falling for her, I started to panic that if I actually love someone, I'll have to tell them everything. That's how a relationship works, right? Is honesty. So I started to convince myself that there was really no need for me to be with this person, and that telling her what happened to me was the best thing possible. So one night, when we were discussing our future, I explained to her that I wasn't completely being honest with her. In fact, every time we had sex before that, I was lying to her. And she took the news rather well, surprisingly. She looked at me and she said, "I don't believe that this is you and that you'll be fine and we should just try it." And I said, "I can't, I need to take the pill for it to work." And she just said no. And every time I fought, she said no. And for me, it was the first time where I could tell that I wasn't just the one in love. It was that she was actually in love with me as well. And we tried it, and everything worked great. And then everything kept working great. And the story isn't about how this girl and I spent the rest of our lives together after she cured me, because it was deep and it was fun, but I knew from the very beginning that it was love, but it was fleeting. What she gave me was that I don't think I ever thought that I deserved the kind of love that she gave me. I didn't think I was comfortable enough with myself to open up to someone and let them love me in the way that she had. It wasn't that there was any problem with it was that my body was grabbing at me and shaking me awake in the only way it knew it would get my attention. I was trapped, and it was that she loved me that set me free. Thank you guys.